What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the BizDad Podcast. Today, I am stoked to finally have a conversation with Israel Duran. He and I have been going back and forth on email, trying to find the right times, had to cancel on each other, and but finally going to be able to make this happen. I'm looking forward to the conversation. Israel, welcome, and please, if you can, go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us about your family, and tell us about your business.
Well, first off, thank you, Adam, for having us, and I know we've been kind of building a relationship here for the last year, so I'm glad we were able to finally make it happen. In regards to when I talk about myself, I always talk about what I can do for others. So in our business, what we primarily do is we help people monetize their experience, their education, their expertise, and we help them monetize online using speaking as the main vehicle and what we call online scalable systems. I've grown pretty much primarily using the internet, and the internet is something that won't go anywhere, and it's a good benefit for business owners. So about my family, I'm a husband of one, a wife. My beautiful wife's name is Jessica, and we have 5 children together. We have Abigail, Annabelle, Abiel, Abrielle, Aziel, all with under the number 8, as we talked about.
Very lovely.
During the pre-call. But their names begin with an A and they end with an IL or EL. So we've done that on purpose because we wanted to create something different. We wanted to create a mark in history, if you will, to just have we're very faith-based, so to have something that can really highlight faith.
Yeah, I mean, 5 kids under 8 has got to be, as well, as trying to do speaking gigs and jump on podcasts and do all the stuff. You've got to have a massively supportive wife, I would imagine.
For sure, the best of the best.
Yes. No, I disagree.
Yes.
I've got you beat. My wife is better. Just throwing that out there.
For sure.
I'm willing to arm wrestle you over it. My wife beats yours.
You should, well, we're gonna have a showdown, as they say.
Let's make it happen.
Yeah.
Welcome to the BizDad Podcast, where we dive into the melding of fathership and entrepreneurship with your host, the original BizDad himself, Adam Labar. Adam is a Christian, a former Air Force officer, a dad to 3 amazing kids, a coach, a real estate investor, and a business owner. On this podcast, he'll explore the unique journeys of amazing dads who are striving for greatness in both business and family. So whether you're a dad who is an aspiring entrepreneur, a seasoned business owner, or simply a man striving to be a better dad, get ready as the BizDad brings you conversations to inspire, challenge, and equip you to be a better dad and entrepreneur. And now, here's Adam.
But anyways, I want to kind of rewind a little bit and I kind of understand where you come from. And I know on the pre-call you talked about you wanted to do the part talking about your dad live. So I look forward to kind of hearing a little bit of the story. I'd love to kind of rewind a little bit. Tell me a little bit about what it was like for you growing up, Israel. Tell me especially about your dad, kind of what kind of figure he was to you, and what that and then as that's changed over the years.
Yeah, so quick backstory. So my dad, Domingo Duran, back in 1993, give or take, he was having a bunch of chest pains on his left side. And my mother, who was a doctor in Dominican Republic, and she immigrated over with my dad from the DR, she wasn't able to transfer her license here because of the English barrier as an immigrant. But she understood that, hey, if you're having these pains, you got to go check yourself out. So my mom told my dad, hey, go get yourself checked out at the emergency room and, make sure you're good. So my dad listened. He went to the ER, and he waited about 3.5 hours at the ER. For whatever reason, they didn't attend him in time because they had other emergencies, I guess, more important. And he just went back home. And unfortunately, when he went back home, he had what the medical community call a STEMI. He had a massive heart attack, and, my dad died alone. My mom finds him in that condition, and it was a very traumatic experience for my mom. She doesn't bring it up much. I don't ask her much. But I was about 3 months when my dad passed. So growing up as a young child, I had 4 specific voids in my life that I was trying to search them in all the wrong places, made all the wrong mistakes. And those 4 voids are actually the 4 pillars of what we do in our business with helping business owners, investors, and entrepreneurs fill in their life to help them grow. It's pretty crazy. It's like the thing that I didn't have as a child are the things that I value as an adult today.
Hey, everybody, wanted to step in to discuss something. If you're anything like me, you've ran into some time in your business where you feel a little overwhelmed with some of the mundane tasks that eat up your valuable time. You're working more in the business than you are on the business, right? If that's you and you're hearing this and you're saying, boy, it is time to reclaim some of my schedule back, to focus on what truly matters. You want to get time back with elite remote talent with zero time zone hassle. Check out one of my partners that I just recently partnered up with, BizDad&x.com/Adam is where you go to check these folks out. Delegate $10 an hour tasks to focus more on the $1,000 an hour tasks, the things that are really transforming your business. Get rid of some of those transactional things and do some more of the transformational inside of your business. So again, schedule your free strategy call at wisevas.com/Adam. Wise, WISEVAS.com/Adam. Again, let's get rid of some of those transactional tasks and move them into transformational tasks. It's been a phenomenal team to work with. I really look forward to sharing them with you. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. I'll be happy to discuss with you what's going on as well. But again, wisevas.com/Adam. Thank you very much. And now back to the episode. Yeah, that's one of the reasons I love asking about the dads, is because there's something about what we're either running away from or running towards that we saw our dads, or in your case, very much missed out on your dad, that ends up either sharpening the tools that we have later in life or dulling the pain later on in life, whether we chase something that our dads did or run away from it. So I'm looking forward to digging into this. So tell me about those four voids that you had growing up. And I want to stick to the voids for now. Tell me a little bit about the voids that you had growing up. How did you see them? When did you notice them? And talk me through that.
Well, definitely it was in hindsight. Like as I was older, I'd identified, okay, these were definitely things I was looking for. Number one void was identity. I always tell people identity is the highest mountain where everything flows from. Like that identity is huge. So I was trying to like find out who I was, like who am I, right? And I wanted to look my dad in the eye, and I wanted for him to give me my identity. I wanted him to tell me who I was. So I didn't have that opportunity. I was confused as a child, made a lot of mistakes, and I was very introverted because I didn't have a solid identity. Second void was purpose, and purpose comes after identity. Sometimes people get that confused. It took me a while to learn that, by the way. I used to think that purpose was identity and identity was purpose, but then it actually comes after. Like purpose is always determined by your identity, not the reverse, right? That's why some people, like a lot of times when dads, or mothers as well, they're working in a career and they're doing something for so long and that's their purpose. But then sometimes they wrap their purpose in their identity. When that purpose gets adjusted or shifts or they end up doing something else, they fall into depression or suicide because they're like, well, I don't have a reason to live because my purpose was taken from me. But, for me, I had to kind of understand that. So, like purpose is big. Purpose is what you're called to do in a certain season and the people that you're called to serve. And then number three is specifically voice and vision. You see, I wanted to find my vision. I wanted to have clear voice, and I didn't really have. So purpose has to do with people, and deep down inside, I wanted to get clarity on what my purpose was in that season. I didn't know this at the time, but purpose was connected to people, like who I was called to serve and what I was supposed to do. And that's what I wanted to really get from my dad, glean my purpose or clarity on my purpose from my dad. And number three is actually, it's vision. And it's not only vision, but it's also your voice. Because what I teach people is you get your vision from the voids that you see, and you get your voice from filling the voids. Like I have a thing that we teach on, it's called vision, voice, and voids. And it's pretty simple process, but it's like I wanted my dad to give me clarity on like, okay, what's my vision? What void am I supposed to speak into? Because that was going to help me find my voice. And then number four, I wanted a custom plan from my dad. I wanted for him to look me in my eyes and give me a custom plan that I can execute that was custom to me so I can go ahead and fulfill all the above. And I didn't have those four things. And my bonus dad came into my life. His name is Oscar when I was about 5 years old. I never accepted my bonus dad. I call him bonus dad because when I was at Les Brown's house one day doing what we call a mini impact day with him, and I had shared with him my history, and I said stepfather, and he said never use the name stepfather when referring to the man that raised you. He's your bonus father. So I really like that. So I took that name. That's why I use bonus dad or bonus father. But I didn't accept my bonus dad as a dad until I was like 21 years old. I butt a lot of heads with him growing up. There was some alcohol abuse, just things I don't blame him for, because unfortunately, if that's what you see when you grow up, I mean, that's what you're gonna, it's part of unfortunately life. But me and him have a great relationship today, and yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward to kind of asking you about, and I'm going to try to help me remember to ask you this on how you apply that with your kids. But before I get into that, you talked about that you've turned these 4 voids into now the pillars for your current business. So are you trying to help other folks build these voids as they come to you to kind of help fill those voids for themselves and figure out their identity, figure out their purpose and all of that? Is that how your process works at the moment?
Well, in business, what's really like awesome is like the laws of business work in every other industry or every other sphere of like work. Like, for example, the law of gravity, right? The law of gravity works everywhere, like in Florida, here, overseas. So like there's certain laws that are like the law of identity, the law of purpose, the law of vision, the law of the architect, as we call it, which is really what planning is, that apply to everything. So like for me, like it's not like always indirectly that I'm teaching people, but it like almost like, or directly, it's almost like indirectly sometimes it is directly. But those 4 pillars are engraved in every service or product or collaboration that we have. Like it's just naturally when I speak or when I empower a group or when I'm speaking into a group, they're going to be empowered with one of those 4 pillars. Yeah.
Awesome. And how long did it kind of take you? You said you looked at this and came up with a lot of this and seeing those voids in hindsight.
It's taking me
how long did it?
Yeah, it's taking me my whole life, man, to really get just like, and I'm still working on things,
Yeah.
Me not having my dad in my life growing up, it did a lot of, how can I say this? And not to interrupt you or to shortcut you.
No,
I feel where you're going. It was like, obviously it wasn't, I mean, I wouldn't wish anybody losing their dad at 3 months. Like you don't want to go through what I went through for sure. Right. And it's not good. Right. But at the same time, I'm not like, I used to be angry about it, but I've moved past that. Like I have to move forward, and growing up, it was one of those things where it was like, I always thought I was alone. I had a very big problem trusting men, like, cause every man in my life failed, like, let me down. That's what my perception was, because my dad kind of left. He didn't leave like that, right? It's just, he didn't have a choice. He just died prematurely. My dad passed actually at 29 years old. He was 29 when he passed.
Wow.
Yeah. So, it's an emotional thing for me, but I thank God because it's given me a perspective that has helped make me who I am. I still have a lot to work on, sure, right? But it's given me empathy. It's given me vision. It's given me identity. Like crazy. Like me not having my dad helped me even to reinforce those 4 things. And now it's like a lot of people that I work with. What's crazy about this, Adam, is, and it's not us trying to like attract them. It's just they just come when we do our messaging. Like a lot of the people I work with, they could literally be my father or mother. Like I work with people in their 60s, 70s. That's primarily our main audience. And it's crazy because like I didn't have that when I was a child, but now I'm serving that. So it's like I had to become the man that I wanted in my life, if you will, right? And I'm still becoming. I haven't arrived, but we've come a long way by God's grace.
Well, I sure hope that none of us ever arrive. We just keep driving towards something. Because once you've arrived, then what are you chasing after that, right?
That's it.
But all right, so I'm really curious how, if you saw these 4 voids growing up for yourself, and I mentioned that I was going to ask about this, but as you saw these 4 voids growing up, you've kind of put them down on paper, you're using them in business now. You've got 5 kids, 8 and under. What is kind of your thought process of ensuring that these 4 voids are not voids in your kids? How are you going to be pouring into them? What's your thoughts on that? What's your intentionality behind that to be able to provide some of those things that you felt like you didn't have growing up?
Well, definitely time management is a big one for especially busy dads and busy moms as well. Because we always talk, I know this is a BizDad show, but there's moms as well, which I'm sure you can confirm that are busy, and
Yes.
I wouldn't be able to do what I am doing if it wasn't for my wife. So, very great support system at home is key, and the time management is very important because when you have 5 children, it's a different type of, especially when they're young, because one of them gets older, right? The oldest one starts to help out, but you really got to spend the time. You got to be intentional about it to spend time individually with them. And, you know, they always constantly like, hey, daddy, it's my time with you. It's, hey, daddy, it's my time with you. So I've been instilling that. And, you know, there's good momentum. And then sometimes when we have to travel and things, we got to kind of re-engage again. But it's definitely something that has helped a lot. Being able to, like the family, being able to spend time individually with the children. And what I do is I have a day of the week where I spend, like specifically that's their day. And if I'm traveling or whatever, if there's something, you know, mom planned something or something's going on, you know, we'll adjust it. But I try to have that time minimum weekly. And I also do what we call a family devotional or family altar. We do that several times a week. But we try to really lay down on Fridays or have it really anchored on Friday evenings and afternoons. This is something I learned this is going to be funny. My name is Israel David, but I'm not Jewish, but I have a lot of Jewish people that I know. And one of the things I love about the Jewish people or the Hebrew people is their culture. And one of the things that they do, there's something called the Shabbat or the Sabbath. One of the things that they do, the fathers do in the culture, when you read the history, is that every Friday, they do 3 specific things. They all have a family meal together, right, with no cell phones, right, all family meal. They all, you know, the men or the father gives gifts to specifically his daughters, it could be the sons too, but to his daughters, and to his wife. Those are the 3 things that happen every single week. Now, when you look historically and you know, holistically at different cultures and marriage and divorce, because it's a huge topic here in America, you know, and there's a couple reasons why, when data statistics show why divorce happens, which maybe we can get into, but when you look at the Hebrew culture, it's slimmer because I believe because of the certain things in their culture that kind of embed family, embed fellowship, embed, like, you know, husbands giving gifts, like that's something women like, right? Can build relationship as well. So that's one of the things that I do. I try to be, I'm consistent with it. Sometimes we do it on Saturdays or Sundays, but Fridays I've found that it's a good way to transition into the weekend, and it just sets the tone, especially with us men that are looking to, you know, make sure we're wise, right? It sets the tone. Yeah. Yeah.
When did you kind of start doing that specifically? The, you know, kind of following that Shabbat tradition.
It's not like we do it religiously or like not that religion is a bad thing. It's more of instilling a culture. We want to, because my wife's Brazilian, my family's from the Dominican Republic, so we have 2 different cultures, right? We're growing them up in America, so it's like we want to keep a core value and a core family like tradition. That's different than what most people do. It's like uncommon. But we believe that it's going to help raise up our children in a way that they're going to be able to pass something down to the next generation that's going to be helpful. So that's why we do it. We started to do it, really, we've been on and off pretty much since we got married. More consistently in the last few years, it's been more focused because as they grow, you got to find a thing to do for all of them, right?
Okay, very good. Yeah, I think that the ability for us to have traditions as a family, to be able to have those, and that's one thing I love about the Jewish culture, as you were kind of already implying, is, and that's one of the reasons their divorce rate is so low, is they have those traditions, they have those standards, they stay together, they keep that relationship strong. There's almost forced engagement with each other and communication and talking, and in today's day and age, too often we're jumping on our cell phones, where you know, our kids are sitting in front of a screen because, you know, it's a good babysitter that's free while I'm doing something else. And like, what sort of standard are we setting? What sort of traditions are we setting? Where our traditions are now like not talking and showing each other a TikTok video. Yeah. Right. Oh, I found this TikTok video fun. Well, that's not a very good tradition, I don't think. I don't think that's going to help us do what we're doing, right?
Yeah, you know, there's always like, people say, why are you on social media, Israel? Well, number one, because I'm in business, but I strictly use social media for 2 reasons and 2 reasons only. I use social media to, share and encourage and uplift people. The reason number one. And number two, for monetization purposes. Like those are the only reasons that I'm not on social media to try to argue with somebody about something else or to post pictures about my family. Like it's very weird that not that I have a lot of pictures of my family, but I'm very strategic with what I post. Why? Because we're living in a world where AI is doing crazy things. And unfortunately, most of the people in this world, they don't have the best intention. Like humanity, people care about each other, but when you actually study the history of who controls the world or who has the majority of the wealth and owns the different large corporations and enterprises and what really goes on, there's a lot of people that don't have humanity's best interests that have a lot of power, right? So the way AI is going, it's like people think the Terminator was a joke, like not real. Well, think about 100 years ago. Imagine 100 years ago, or 200 years ago. Yeah, you're going to be able to get on a plane, and you're going to be able to go from New York to California in 6 hours. People would look at you and say, "Are you okay?"
Yeah.
Right? That track record of 200 years or whatever time it took, that's what we're about to experience in the next 5 years. Like that 200-year acceleration within 5 years. And what's coming? Because I have what I do, because we have a part of our company, we do a lot of AI research and a lot of AI development as well. Some of the stuff that's coming out, I got to be fully transparent. It's not only going to take out jobs, like that's given. It's already happening. The AI developments are going to take out whole industries. Like whole industries are going to be wiped out. And so that's why I tell people, like, be very careful what you post online, because there's technology out there that people can use against you, and the criminals can use against you to do a lot of like just not cool stuff, and they're already doing it. My background's in cybersecurity, by the way. I have my master's in cybersecurity, so that's why I have this information. They're already doing it. There's a lot of like theft going on, a lot of ransom, a lot of also blackmail, a lot of just evil things happening with people following you on social media and then taking the images of your children. It's really bad. So I'm very wise with what we do there when it comes to social media with our children. My children do not have a phone. I'm probably going to have them get a phone maybe when they're 18, maybe, right?
Yeah.
That's just, again, maybe it's extreme to some parents. Maybe it's a phone where they could just call me and my wife. But it's pretty crazy what's out there. My children are tech savvy for sure, but I'm just very strategic on what I allow them to consume when, because it's really getting like pretty crazy out there.
And what I try to tell, a lot of other people. So I'm a former federal law enforcement officer, and done a lot of different child predator things and all sorts of stuff on those types of cases. And I try to tell people all the time, I said, it's not necessarily about what your kids have access to. It's about who has access to your kids.
That's it.
Because like you get your kid onto the internet, the internet now has access to your kids, right? I mean, it's a door that is two ways, and there's no way around it. Like sometimes that second way that comes back in, you have no idea it's even happening. They click on one random thing at some random time, and guess what? Now they have access to any number of things in your house, even because they decided to do it.
What federal organization you work for?
So I was, it's called OSI, so it's like NCIS, but for the Air Force. Okay. So I would do all the counterintelligence criminal investigations for the
awesome.
DOD and the Air Force.
So my original plan was to work for the FBI. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to work for the FBI. I got my master's in cybersecurity, and I got it because the FBI was really hiring with cybersecurity. So I got married, and I have my first girl, Abigail. So I kind of like, pivoted to another angle, which was the corporate side, and then that's where I started my first business I ever started was a cybersecurity firm.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was doing a lot on that side, and then I pivoted into coaching, and everything kind of like transit. We still have that business today, but it's more for contract. I don't manage it myself, but yeah.
Very cool. Do you have any regrets about not going after the FBI side of the house?
I don't. Don't have the regrets. I believe it was God redirecting me because, one of the things with the federal government, which I'm sure you're familiar with, they'll send you anywhere they need to send you.
Truth.
And I just didn't want to be sent. I wanted to maximize the time with the children. And that's why I decided to go corporate.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons that I was trying to find a way to be done with doing what I was doing. I was missing out on time with the kids. There was one day when I was living in Japan. Speaking of sending them anywhere they need you, we lived in Japan for 3 years, and I was gone constantly. My going away gift, we always give somebody a going away gift, and on the going away gift it said Adam always TDY, which is a temporary duty, meaning you're somewhere else. Always TDY Labar, because I was always gone. And there was one time I was taking the trash out when I was home, and my son came running up to me, and he was crying. He says, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy, don't leave again." And he was pulling on my pants. And I was like, golly, I got to figure something else out. If I want to be the dad that I said I want to be, then I need to figure something else out to be a present father and to be around for them. And it's kind of hard to be a good dad if you're an absent dad. For sure. Call me crazy. And I talk to military members all the time about that because, I see the military guys constantly doing it. Now I talk to entrepreneurs about the same thing, just from a different angle. Is you're going to affect your kids as a father one way or another, or whether it's in the house or outside of the house, you're going to affect them. Sure. So would you rather be there next to them and being involved and showing all of that, or would you rather do it while fighting a potential stepfather who doesn't like you after a divorce while you're on the other side of the world? These are some of your options. Figure out how to make those happen. Which one would you prefer to do? One way or another, your kids are going to get something from you.
Yeah, for sure. It's the sacrifices, the decisions. Sometimes the best lessons we learn is by going through the pain too. It's not knowing, and then we make mistakes, and that's how we learn, right? To make the adjustment. So somebody may be listening, and they might have made that mistake. They might have been in that position, but that's the sobering reality of you got to make adjustments, right? And I don't know about you. I'd be curious to hear, Adam. For me, it was always a battle when it came to on the front end of having children and raising children. I'm even raising my children now. Because of what I experienced as a child, I had to be intentional about, and still have to be intentional about really fighting through, because it's not going to be done by just going by the motions. It doesn't work that way. You got to be super intentional. You got to be vigilant. You got to have a method. You got to have a why. And you got to be consistent. That's the key. Consistency is key. And the reason why this is interesting. The reason why we go to the gym is because we are seeking the resistance so we can grow. We can grow our muscles, right? Mm-hmm. What I found, Adam, is when we are raising our children, and I'd be curious to hear your opinion because your children are slightly older than mine. There's always different seasons. What I found, even the difference between 6 and 8 is huge. I'm oh my goodness. But what I found is for every level, that resistance, you lean into it, it uncovers a new lesson. It's pretty crazy. I have I learn a lot from my children, right? And experiencing it from the other side, because I remember somebody said this to me when I was young. They said, Israel, you're going to have 2 chances to have a father and son relationship. You didn't really have that great of a chance with your dad because, unfortunately, he left. And you do have your bonus dad. But you're going to have another opportunity when you have children. And it always stuck with me. What I didn't know, Adam, is that I was going to learn a lot more than what I thought from my actual children.
Yeah.
I learned from my children, right? Which is...
No, I completely agree with that, and it's we're teaching ourselves constantly on how to do this. And I've been telling my oldest since he was little. I said, "Hey, buddy, I know this is difficult for you, whatever the situation is that they're going through." I said, "You have never done this as a 3-year-old, as a 5-year-old, now as a 10-year-old." I said, "You've never done this, and I've never raised a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 10-year-old. I'm learning how to be your dad just as much as you're learning how to be a kid in this world." So we get to do it together, and we get to teach each other different things. I get to show you my vulnerabilities. You get to show me your vulnerabilities. And if we're in good communication with each other and we keep that relationship going, we're going to be in much better position, And it's I constantly am the other day, just as an example of where I failed miserably. I slightly overreacted. Maybe more than slightly overreacted. My son had this gun. and it shoots like these little gel balls, like a gel blaster type gun, but they hurt pretty good, right? You're supposed to wear goggles. And when we started off this gun, it was like, hey, don't shoot anybody with it. Like, it came with the glasses, and the last time I had a gun that came with glasses, it hurt a lot more than I thought it was going to. The boys were shooting each other, and it was leaving big welts, and it was a bad day. But I said, hey, no shooting anybody. And then we realized, okay, it's not as bad as we thought. It comes with it because they're really small. So I said, no shooting anybody. Like, don't shoot your brother unless he says it's okay. Blah blah blah. And then I find out that something went awry the way that I did not want it to go. And I overreacted with the gun, and I was like, golly, like I threw it away. I was done with it, and that part I needed to do because it had gone too far.
Sure.
But the reaction to it, I had to go back and apologize, sit down and say, hey, like, I'm learning a little bit more about myself and my inability to control my emotions the same way that I'm trying to teach you to control your emotions. So like, I know that there are certain triggers that I have that I need to do a better job controlling. And for me, I think that's, I've yet to be told anything countering that makes me think anything different. I think it is much better for me to admit that to him and show him that it's okay to be wrong because I'm fixing that and I'm trying to work at that and be okay with that. And it seems to be well received from him. So I completely agree that you're going to be, and I'm hoping that I'll continue that learning all the way through the time that they have kids, where I'm like, boy, I'm now learning how to be a grandfather at a higher level than I was able to be a dad, and continue that growth as I keep going. So yeah, completely agree with you there.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, like, fathership, what I found is, like, especially in business, right? Because in business we have this tension where we need to provide for our families, right? Because a lot of I work with a lot of business dads as well, and like, there's always that tension, like, they have to be the provider, and obviously, women, they love security, and one of the things of security they love is the financial security. They want to be protected in that area. That's actually one of the top 3 reasons for divorce is typically like communication on money, or money problems that then lead to other things, right? That then open up other doors to other things. And then there's infidelity, and then there's one that a lot of people don't talk about a lot, and that's like third-party intervention. Third-party intervention is good for when you have the right people intervening, but sometimes it's not good, right? It all depends.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, when it comes to the tension part, it's like I got this tension where, especially for us dads, it's like, well, we got the business we got to make sure we manage. We have employees, contractors, partners that we have to also show up and do our due diligence. And you know how it is when you're growing a small business or growing an even medium-sized business. You're typically the first one in, last one out. After you get into a place where you can actually work on the business and not in it. But even when you're working on the business and not in it, there's even more pressure, right? There's much less work because you're doing specific things, but now there's still pressure that you have to fulfill and just show up. And if your business is publicly traded, forget about it. You're going to have to even have more pressure. Yeah. So they have that pressure, and then they have the pressure of their wife because they have to also, or their spouse, they have to make sure that their spouse is okay, they're happy, and they're satisfied, which is, it's easier said than done because especially with the process, you got to work it, right? And there's pressure there. And then you have the children, depending on how many children you have that pressure as well. And then if you have any other relationships, like perhaps your parents, right? Maybe they're elderly, maybe they're older, or you got to take care of your loved ones. Now you got that pressure, right? And if you're involved in another group or another ministry or maybe a nonprofit or another business, well, you got that component, right? Or if you're an investor, well, you got that going on, right? So it could be a lot. That's why I said what I said earlier is so important. I just want to emphasize it. Time management is so important. It's not just about managing time, but it's about having seasons of extremes of focus so you can overall balance it out. There's different seasons in life we live. But what I found, Adam, and I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on this, is like men, like dads, like sometimes we're very hard on ourselves. Like at least, I mean, like we're the hardest ones on ourselves typically. And many times we don't like to share with anybody, right? That's why I love your platform, the BizDad Podcast, because, it's important for us men to share and for us to be vulnerable and for us to share where we need assistance with and help, because it's important. And it coming from a person like myself that used to have trust issues with men, like I know what I'm saying could seem contradictory to or maybe against what most people believe. But what I found is like when you do things alone, you're not going to get far. But when you do things with somebody else or people that you can confide in and seek help and seek their guidance, like things are going to definitely grow. And there's nothing new under the sun. Like if you're trying to grow a business and take care of your family and your wife and your children and other things that you have in order, like that you want in order, like seeking help would be honestly a great recommendation that I would give anyone, right? Because you may have one area very strong. You may have the financial area strong, but maybe it's the relationship side you need to improve. Or maybe you have the relationship side as best as you can, because there's always going to be a strain if the finances are not there. But let's say you have it as best as you can, but the finances is really where you're at and your wife is supported, or if you're a mother and your husband's supportive, like maybe you need help there. I mean, you may need help with your children. It may be a parenting thing. You may have the business figured out. You may have your wife, your spouse are good, but then now the children. Like there's different seasons in life. But the key is to be open to receive advice and learn as well.
I try to. I completely agree with it, and I've talked about the season side of the house forever. Like it's one of those things that if the season's balanced out, it would be there'd be 8 hours of summer, 8 hours of winter, 8 hours of fall. Like it just and we'd all be miserable. But it's not. That's not how that works, right? So your seasons in life are going to be the same way, and I think that to double down on and I say this constantly on the podcast. Communicate, over communicate with your spouse, constantly be in good, positive communication with your spouse, because as you're going through winter at work, she needs to be there to support you. And I'm saying she because I'm talking to mostly men here, right? She needs to be there to support you. Like your spouse needs to be there. You need to be there to support her as well. There needs to be the good communication, because that to me, I think is, and that's where, the data kind of shows that it's money that's usually the problem. And I always tell people it's the communication about the money, not the money itself.
100%.
Right? It's your ability to communicate about it, not the money itself. Because you guys can work through money things, but you can't work through a lack of communication, poor communication, bad communication. It's just not how that...
Communication will always lead to improving or deproving your mindset. Like communication is the key. The words that you use will change what you see. And what I found when it comes to the money area, that typically what holds people back is communication and mindset, and which, by the way, are the two angles that you can use to actually break through financially, which is kind of crazy how the same thing that could be the problem is actually the solution. Yep,
completely agree. And to double down on the third-party intervention that you talked about, it's sort of I also tell people, like, if you're considering a divorce, you're in a rough spot, don't go sit down at the bar next to the guy who's been divorced 3 times and look for advice. That's the bad third-party intervention, right? Sit down next to the guy who's got a good, strong relationship, who's been through hell and back with their spouse, that can help you figure out how to make it work, because those are the folks who are going to help you get to it. So.
I guarantee you, we've all have our story. I guarantee you someone that's married, I meet a lot of them, 20, 25 years. Now, I mean, I just talked to somebody the other day. They're celebrating, I think, their 40th wedding anniversary. I was like, wow, that's a rare one. But it's like like sitting down and interviewing them and say, hey, what was the reason for it? Like, what do you guys do to stay married? Were there rough moments? And you go through the history of what people go through. It gives you that hope, right? Because what I found is hope deferred typically makes the heart sick and it destroys everything. Like when you don't have hope, it's not good. Like people talk about faith a lot. Like I'm a man of faith, right? Faith is important, but what's 10 times more important, in my personal opinion, is hope. Because if I don't have any hope, my faith doesn't have anything to hold on to, right? That's why the definition of faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. So many times in our relationship, business, there may be a bad month you have, bad couple quarter maybe. Children may be going through something. You may find out, unfortunately, one of your children is going through some things that they shouldn't be going through, or maybe something. Who knows, right? Like there's seasons where you're going to have to hold on to hope as well and believe. And I don't want to sound cliche with this, but it's important for us men to be the leaders in our home with faith, with hope. Because what happens is, unfortunately, this is funny. Unfortunately, we are not judged when things are going well. Like when your business is going well, the children are good, like your relationship with your wife is good, like everything's good, and you're acting good. You're not gonna be judged. Like you're like, No one will even consider, right? I always joke with men. I'm like when your wife starts talking about the past potentially, or talking about, hey, you didn't throw out the trash, you didn't do it 6 months ago, you didn't do it. Remember 5 years ago when we were, can they start being, you're like, oh my goodness, right? It's like, but then like they try to, sometimes they'll use words where they try to put everything together. Like the last 5 years you've been doing it. And I'm like, what about last week? What about when I threw out the trash last week? You don't remember that, right? Women have a tendency of, and that's fine. They have a tendency of being our best cheerleaders. But people, we're going to be judged. The point I'm making is we're going to be judged when everything's going bad. When you're being tested with your children, with your wife, with what at work. Maybe you're not in business, but at your work, right? Or in your business. Like when things are going rough, when people are accusing you and you're at the floor and you're at like rock zero or rock bottom, as they say, that's when you actually will get judged. So it's so important for us to always hold on to hope and not let our emotions get ahead of us or over us, because especially in the difficult moments, could be, you're dealing with a loved one passing, that's when they're going to lean on you for strength, and life is so interesting, Adam. It's crazy what we go through in life as dads and fathers and husbands. And just want to encourage somebody today, like, don't let go of hope. Hold on to hope and continue to go forward, because hope is key.
Completely agreed. And I want to footstep the being the leader in the house, right? Is, just like all too often we'll look at our business and we'll do everything we can to get our business. We have our core values and we have the right people in the right places. We've implemented EOS or whatever system that we're using. We're making sure it's all right. And then at home, we're just kind of like, I hope it all works out. The wrong kind of hope, right? Like, it's like, no, like, sure, we can all have hope, but you need to put some action in this daggum thing, right? Like, do something about it, right? Stay focused, have the conversations, put the right people in the right seats. And that doesn't mean that, is my oldest actually my oldest? Like, that's obviously, illogical. But do I have the right influences going on in my house? Like, maybe the right seat is what's coming on the TV. What are the conversations happening, right? Are you having the right conversations in there? Are you having level 10 meetings with your family? No, you're not sitting down and actually having level 10 meetings with your family. Maybe you are, depending on what age they are, if you're an EOS guy. But are you sitting down and saying, hey, are we intentional about what we're doing? Like, what are our goals as a family? Where do we want to be? Like, let's put this out, because now we all have something to work towards. We all have that hope, and you're the driver of that family. Like, be the driver, be the leader. You're running your business. Do the same thing with your family. Like, don't leave them behind. It hurts my heart to watch, and I'm not the only one to say it, but to have all these business owners, especially dads, because that's who I'm talking to, is they're building a business, quote unquote, for their family, and they never see their family because they're gone doing all this stuff to build their business. And it's like, you have a way higher calling, and 100%. That's to be a phenomenal father while building your business. So I think it's Vroman. I can't remember his first name right now. It's like Josh Vroman. I can't remember his first name right now, but he runs Front Row Dads. And he, one of the things he talks about is, I don't want to be a business owner who happens to be a father. I want to be a father who happens 100%. To be a business owner. And it's like, have the right focus, and you'll go a lot farther in life.
100%. Though I love what you just shared. It's you got to be intentional about it. That's the key. You got to be focused.
For sure.
There's a law. It's called the law of focus, and I have about over 75 laws that I teach in our process. And the law of focus teaches this. Like, I'm a big baseball guy, right? You can never get to second base if your foot is still on first, right? If there's two rabbits that you're chasing, you're never going to be able to do it. You got to focus on first going after one rabbit, and then you're able to focus on another one. And the word focus actually means follow one course until success. So, using that principle with what you just shared, it's so important, like, for us to have that foundation. Unfortunately, again, when you look at society in America, statistics show, and this is especially true for men in prison, that not everybody gets an opportunity of growing up with a dad. Not everybody gets the best education when it comes to, being a father or a husband, and putting these systems and processes in place, or even mindsets to be able to be consistent and be a front row dad. So there's always an education process that we need to be open to, because the education, it's not like, well, I'm 50 years old, I can't learn from you. It's like, no, it shouldn't be that mindset. It should be, look, I may be 50 years young, but maybe I just didn't have the opportunity to learn from someone like a mentor or teacher that can kind of teach me the education that can help me to become better, right? Like, it's like we live in a society where it's almost like people are afraid to ask for help, and people are like, they hold everything within. And I used to be that guy, so that's why I'm speaking about it. Like, if you're going through something and you need help, like, do what you need to do and reach out for the help. Maybe it's just you got everything figured out, but you just need help in a certain area. Well, reach out to the best person that you feel that's already doing what you want, and like learn from them. Like, see how you can read, pick up books, read, right? Or ask the questions as well, and see how you can improve, right? But if you just do the same thing and you expect a different result, we already know what that means. We know what the definition of that is.
Yep, for sure. So as you're kind of continuing growing and doing speaking gigs and doing all this stuff, what are the kind of things that you're trying to press upon your kids, upon your children about business, about helping other people, about growth and all of that? What sort of conversations are you having with them? What are some of your, or maybe as they grow, intentionality on bringing them into that side of the business and showing them what that looks like?
You know, my daughter asked me the other day, she was like, hey, Dad, what does service of speaking mean? Because one of my brands is service of speaking. And I said, that's an interesting question. I'm going to bring it up on Family Devotional. So during the Friday devotional, what I typically do is I'll do something on Friday and then I'll do something Saturday morning. It's just a new angle I'm testing, because one of the things I typically done in the past is just read to them, but I want to kind of like engage their, like, all their senses. So I put together this study where I talked about few different verses, and then I showed them a video, and then on Saturday morning I actually had an activity. So what I did was I was like, okay, I'm going to teach you what the service of speaking means. And I said to them, I said, look, the service of speaking or speaking, I believe, is the highest level of service, right? One of my favorite teachers and who I have faith in is Jesus Christ, Jesus of Nazareth. And he used to say this a lot. He said, you know, if you want to be the greatest servant or greatest person, let him be the servant of all, right? So that's where I get that from. I'm like, look, service is not just about what you do with your hands or with your feet, but service is about what you're actually, like your voice, like what are you doing to serve people with your voice, right? And I talked about that. I showed them a video when Jesus like washed the disciples' feet, and that's what I did on Friday. And I told them, I said, look, when we should be able to wash people with our words. That's what I told them. I told them the service of speaking is about using your story, using your expertise, your knowledge, your education, your experience, and serving people, impacting people with your voice and washing their feet. So then I showed them that video, and then on Saturday morning, I had them wash each other's feet, right? So
nice.
That's what I focus on. Like right now, what I'm focusing on is like teaching them principles, like laws. And I have like a whole framework that I follow too, based on when they're like their age. Like typically when they're like 0 to 4, I train them like what to do. Like I train them to be respectful to authority. And then after 0 to 4, I typically teach them like what to do. And then, like, my daughter, she's getting to the point where she's doing stuff on her own. She's, like, cooking on her own. Like, my daughter's 8 years old, and this morning, she cooked breakfast, right? But that's what I try to instill in them. I want to create independent, strong, foundational, human beings, right? That value, that learn from their father's mistakes, their mother's mistakes. Like, I don't want them to repeat the mistakes I've made in life. And I want them to be strengthened. I want them to be empowered. And I want them to have what I didn't have in life. But at the same time, I don't want them to be spoiled. So I use these devotional times to instill and to implement into like, I'm seeing who they are. I'm seeing what their gifts are. And I'm calling it out. But I'm also correcting the things I need to correct. And I'm also then strengthening the areas I need to strengthen. And it's a work in progress for sure, my wife would say.
Yeah. I mean, again, none of us have, hopefully we've never arrived. Same thing as trying to be a better dad. You've never arrived. You're never the best dad that has ever walked this earth. So we've got a strong man to follow in God.
My goal, and this is something I teach a lot to my students and clients. I tell them, I'm like, you are the best coach, best entrepreneur, best pastor, best leader for the person that accepts you as so. So all I'm looking to do and all I really care about is if my children accept me as their dad for their whole life. Like if they say as they get of age, like I accept my dad, like I respect my dad, and I accept you as my father. That's the main key. There's literally, this is crazy too, this concept. There's students and clients that I have that also can relate to my story. And some of them, their father was never, they didn't have a stepfather or a bonus father. They didn't have anybody. Some of them, their mom, they missed her, but like they don't even, some of them didn't even grow up with parents. Like they grew up in the foster care system, right? So a lot of them, this is crazy. They accept me as a coach, as a mentor to help them with business and money growth and empowerment and speaking and all of that. But then like, there's somebody, like I have testimonials on it. There's one gentleman one day, he made me cry. He said, this is like a 55-year-old man, by the way. He said to me, looked me in my eyes, and he said, in tears, he said, you are more than a father figure to me than the man that carries my last name. He said that to me one day. It really hit me. It got very emotional. Because you got to understand, I lived through that, you know? So for a grown man to say that to me, and it's just like, what? Like, what? It's such a blessing, you know? So I want that same, I don't want to only, and I'm very intentional about this, I don't want that only to be for the students I work with, but I want that to be the fact for life from all of my children. You follow me? And
yeah, for sure.
And in one of my presentations, I have a slide where I talk about where I saw my daughter walk for the first time, my second daughter, Annabelle. And you know what's crazy about it, Adam, is 4 days after my daughter was born, that's where I got into a car accident. That was really the catalyst for me. It was back in 2018. That it's the thing I used to launch my first book and launch my third business, and really, it really accelerated things for me. But I remember I took the video, and I played the video during my presentations many times, and I show how my daughter is walking for the first time, because I had a competition going on with my wife who could see my daughter walk for the first time. And I was able to see all my children walk for the first time, something that my dad didn't see me do. So it's really an business stuff for me. It's not even business, it's life. And it's about really serving our purpose, walking in our identity, using our voice to go after our vision and to help others with the voids that we see, and being able to execute the plan or assignment that we were sent on earth to execute. Is really what I'm about.
Now, it sounds like that faith is definitely a big part of your life. Like, is that something did you grow up a Christian, or did you become a Christian later on in your life? When did that kind of start becoming such a pivotal part for you?
My mother and my bonus dad, Roman Catholic. That was the background. We maybe went to church maybe twice every 2 years, something like that, for like Christmas or Easter, you know. I didn't really know anything.
Yep, the CEO, Christmas and Easter only.
Christmas and Easter,
Christians,
maybe.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, I didn't really know about the Bible or Jesus or what happens after life as a child. I actually had an experience when I was at the age of 7 where I drowned in the Dominican Republic. I actually died. I had an NDE, as they say. But I actually went to the other side. It wasn't like a thing where like my soul came outside of my body. And I had that experience. So that was a big moment in my life when I was at the age of 7, because when I drowned in the pool, a man had jumped into the water. He pulled me out of the water. When he pulls me out of the water, I'm back into my body. And when I died, by the way, I was traveling very fast. I was going faster than the speed of light. I felt peace. I felt loved. I felt embraced. I felt like I was in my father's womb. I felt like warmth, not hot, but like a comforting warmth. I felt protected again. I just felt the best I've ever felt, as weird as that sounds, when I was dying. And I knew I was about to meet God. It was like something said to me, like it was like, get ready, you're about to meet God. You're about to get in front of your Creator. You're about to be in front of the throne room of God. And I didn't know anything about God, the Bible, nothing. I was just an innocent little boy just running around. And I don't remember what happened after that. I felt like I was there, but I just don't remember like what happened. I felt like I had a conversation with God. I just don't remember that conversation. And I'm back into my body. And again, I turn around to see who it was, and there was no one to be found. This man that jumped into the water completely disappeared. Nobody knows who the guy is today. Nobody who knows who he was then. Jumped in, jumped out, gone, didn't say a word to anybody. And it kind of marked me, and it still affects me to this day, even thinking about it, because I know God kept me alive for a reason. And I know that reason was for a purpose. And it's just an interesting emotion, interesting feeling to even talk about it. Every time I talk about it, I get choked up a little bit. But
I would imagine.
It's great. So I'm very thankful. And so I tell people, you're alive for a purpose and a reason, and it's time to use your voice to get that purpose accomplished.
What changed in your life? I mean, at 7 years old, with this experience, what kind of changed in your life at that point? Like, what sort of conversations did you end up having with your mom and your bonus dad? What sort of things do you actually recollect actually changing after that moment?
To be fully transparent, not much changed from a conversation perspective. I didn't share that with a lot of people because I thought people were going to think I'm crazy. My sister was there. She actually saw everything. She saw the guy jumped in, disappeared. She saw the whole thing. And her friend as well. But I didn't really share it. I didn't share it with anybody pretty much until probably I was like in my 20s. Like, my mom knew about it because my grandmother was there at the time. That's why my mom didn't really let me go to the swimming at all. I learned how to swim maybe a year or 2 years ago. I learned how to swim because my mom just didn't take us to the water after that happened. It was like she was very afraid. Because think about it, imagine if I would have left, right? That would have been two people at a young age that she would have lost.
Yeah.
So I don't think my mom would have been able to handle it. So I'm really thankful to God for keeping me on earth, because I don't believe that parents should bury their children. I believe it's the other way around, and that's why I have a great heart for people that like have lost their children or even a loved one, because it's just something that's like it's not easy. It's not. And I saw it with my as a young child, with my mom raising my dad. Me and my sister until I was about 5, but these are conversations that a lot of people don't like to have, but they're important because let's say you didn't experience that. There's other people that have, and we as dads, we as couples, we can make a difference in the lives of other people as well. And sometimes it's right around the corner, like it's right, or in our family, it's right there. Like, it's not like you got to go overseas to empower somebody. It could be literally right down the road, someone's going through something. So anytime I get a chance to share it on like a platform that's like, it makes sense to share it on, I share it. And obviously this is the best podcast to share it on because it's called the BizDad. It's important, it's important.
For sure. I can't, for me, like being a Christian and is, one of the most important parts of my life, if not the most important part of my life. And it's, I kind of grew up in it. My mom was a Christian, so I just went to church as I was supposed to, and then of course you become an adult and you have to start. There's a point in your life where you have to kind of make that decision yourself. That no, this is actually what you're supposed to be doing. This is actually who you are. This is what you're supposed to be chasing. And it especially became more and more clear as you get married and have kids. Like, boy, you really need to tighten the ship here, and really, you're not just responsible for yourself anymore. Like, you can make a fool of yourself once in a while, but you make a fool of your family, it's a whole different world. And I've got a very big responsibility, and I think every one of the men listening to this, every dad listening to this, you have a huge responsibility, whether you believe it or not, to be the leader of your family. To be the pillar of your family that they need you to be, and I think that we as Christians especially have a good example of that in God and in what we should be striving 100%. Towards. I love that you're doing the same thing and you're using your faith in your life and your walk with your kids, and I absolutely appreciate that. What sort of you mentioned that your parents, your bonus dad and your mom were Roman Catholic, but what are you Catholic now, or do you what sort of denomination? I
consider myself a disciple of Jesus Christ, a Christian, a believer. I was reading in the book of John, actually, one of my favorite books. It's pretty powerful, the book of John. I always recommend it for like new people that want to, like, especially business owners that you want to actually like learn, like you're just like interested, like, okay, let me give it a try. Book of John is amazing. It's powerful. Jesus talked about how the Pharisees would search the scriptures to read and to find him, because he said, you search the scriptures daily because you think that you'll find life in them, but the scriptures actually testify of me. And they said, well, how can the scriptures testify of you? Are you better than our father Abraham? They said. And he's like, well, if you or better than Moses, he's like, well, if you believe Moses' writings, you would believe on me because Moses wrote about me. So what I love about like when this whole talk of denominations and stuff, I tell people, I'm like, look, it's really about having a relationship with the Father, with God, through His Son, and it's about really having an encounter with Him. It's like if somebody came up to me and said, I don't believe that you have a wife or that you're married, I would just say, you can believe whatever you want to believe. I know that I have a relationship with my wife because I know her, right? So it's the same thing with God. It's like when you have a relationship with God, like with Christ, and you see Him, like you actually see, it's not just based on like blind faith, like, oh, I'm going to believe in this thing and there's no, like, no, it's like you have that encounter and you see His faithfulness through your life and His grace and His mercy. Like, it's like, it's real and it empowers you and it gives you that vision. Because I'm going to be fully transparent with you. I don't know how dads do it without having a faith foundation. I just don't know. I mean, most of the dads that I know that have gone through tough things, like the reason why they're still standing is because of faith. Or they anchor them. They have an anchor there. Like it's very hard to do a lot, like juggling a lot of this stuff, like business, wealth, family, speaking, and, children and wife. I mean, it's a lot to do it all on your own without having like an outlet that you can really like build on, So I would highly recommend if there's anybody listening in that maybe they don't identify like as a Christian or like with faith, like if you're in a position where like you need some assistance or you need help, I would highly recommend you to read the book of John or even listen to it like audio. I like to listen from the King James Version. It's just every time I listen to it or every time I read it, I get something new. It's crazy to me. I probably read it over 50 times, and every single time I get something new.
Right, and I do like that you mentioned that, right? So to me, the denominations are more. They're man-made, right? There's open-handed and closed-handed issues, and as long as you're in on the closed-handed issues, and we can agree that Jesus Christ is God's Son sent to earth, died on a cross, rose 3 days later to save our sins. Guess what? We're on the same track here, right?
Like,
but there's some other things that are in the middle.
I used to have this question in my heart as a young child that I was questioning where my dad was. I really had a hard time about it, And this is something I haven't really talked about ever on a podcast, by the way. And I've been on like over 100 podcasts and 100 stages. So you're getting something really good here. And those that are listening in to an hour. I always question and I always ask, I was like, where is my dad? And like, what's crazy about it? I never asked the question. It was a question that was so deep inside my heart. And I was so like, concerned about it that I never actually asked it with my mouth, as weird as that sounds. One day, this is like right when I really kind of got into the faith, when I really, surrendered and I yielded my life to God. And I said, okay, not surrendered because you surrendered to an enemy. I yielded my life to God. And I really said, okay, Jesus, I'm going full force. Here I am, take my life, And it was when I was going through a hard time I had gone through a lot of things. I lost one of my good friends. His name is Chris Reyes. He died in a car accident. It was a very emotional time for me. And even thinking about him, it gets me emotional. Very good man. And, one of the things, I was in a very bad moment in my life. But and all of a sudden, this was back by the way, like in 2012, when the Patriots and the Giants were playing each other for the Super Bowl. You remember that? The New York Giants, 2012. This is on Super Bowl Sunday.
I had muted myself. Yes,
Super Bowl
definitely
Sunday.
remember that.
And I remember I was supposed to get picked up from one of my, actually a pastor friend of mine that we were going to do a Super Bowl party. And I remember I was in my dorm room at the time. This was when I was in college. I forgot what the reason why I sat down, but I think I was tired or whatever. I just sat down. When I sat down on my bed, I felt like a cloud came into the room, as weird as it sounds, and knocked me out. Like I fell into a trance or a dream, and I went into a vision. And in this vision, I'm in this vision, and I see a lot of children, like a bunch of children just running around. I'm talking about hundreds of children, like legit. And there was this huge counter that there was someone serving ice cream, right? And these children were filled with joy, incredible joy. And I was just there, and I was giving the children, I was just just giving them this stuff, and they were happy, right? And all of a sudden, the children like run away, like they just run off. And I hear somebody open a door behind me. And I turn around and see who it was. And I saw my father in this dream. And in this dream, I saw my father, and there was somebody behind him as well, another individual. And in this dream, my dad speaks to me in English, which is super weird because I thought my dad would only speak to me in Spanish. This is like what I would have planned. Like, no, my dad speaks Spanish. He would speak to me in Spanish. He spoke to me in English. And I speak Spanish, but I'm not the best Spanish speaker, especially at that age. And he speaks to me in English. And he says to me, I actually hug him in the dream. And I'm crying in the dream, but there's no tears coming out. It's weird, it's crazy. There's like no tears coming out, even though I'm crying. And my dad says to me, now you know I'm here forever. That's what he says to me. And then I come out of the dream like almost like a tornado. Like it was like it just came out of the dream. And I'm back in my dorm room, and I think I'm going crazy. I legit. That's like what's going on right now? Like I'm looking at the time. I'm like, what just happened? Like, and I didn't tell anybody that. Like for a while. Fast forward that summer. I didn't tell a soul. Fast forward that summer, I went to a family picnic, like a family reunion, and I saw my uncle for like, I haven't seen my uncle in like 15 years from that, like a long time. Like I was a child maybe when the last time I saw him. And I saw my uncle, and I started having a conversation with my uncle. And something leads me to tell him like the dream that I had, right? And I tell him the dream, and he says to me, that's pretty interesting, that dream that you had, because your dad was actually the first person to come to the United States. He was the one that brought us here. And number two, your dad was the first person to speak English in the family. One of the first people. And you know what's pretty crazy too, because my uncle, his name is Jose, he's also a Christian. He said to me, you know what's pretty crazy is the book of Revelation says that in heaven there's going to be no tears. That God will wipe away every tear. And you know what's funny is when I not funny, but what's interesting is when I came out of that vision, I was actually crying. But when I looked, there was no tears coming out of, like legit, there was nothing coming out of my eyes, which was weird. So, yeah, I felt like God answered that prayer to me, but I never asked. I had it so buried so deep inside that the only way, like the only person that could know was God. And that's what happened to me when I decided to go full force with God. So God will always answer those deep down questions, and He'll heal the deepest wounds that you have, wounds that you don't even know that you have. That's how awesome God is.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I would imagine that was a unbelievably powerful moment in your life, and kind of, something to look back on for sure. And I appreciate you sharing it, especially since this is like you said, the first time you kind of shared that out here. So I'm really interested to see. We are all experiencing different things in our life, and we all are applying things as dads that we learned, maybe that we heard on this podcast, maybe that we met, or maybe that we saw in our dads or our bonus dads or all the stuff. That experience in your life, what did that tell you about, besides what it told you about God, because you've already hit that? What did that tell you about, you being a dad? What did that tell you about, the feelings that you had about missing from your dad? Like, what sort of other impacts did that have on your life?
I believe it was a healing that God was doing in my heart, deep down inside, for me to start being vulnerable and being open to even be a dad. Because I never grew up saying I was going to be a dad. It was kind of like God said to me, like, get ready, you're going to be a dad. It was like God. Like I've had a few people actually like prophetically speak that into my life. And I was like, okay, but I need this thing answered, right? So when God answered that for me, it kind of gave me a lot of peace, and it gave me the okay and the strength, like it strengthened me to say, okay, it's okay for you to be a dad, number one, and for you don't have to have everything figured out. You don't have to be afraid that you're going to repeat the cycle, and you can fight the cycle. And you can aim, and you can strive and stand to make sure that you fill the void in your children, and you make sure that they don't go what you went through, right? Because there is a thing called generational curses and also generational blessings that a lot of times in the education system, you're not going to learn this in college, right? Unless you're going to a specific university. And you're definitely not going to learn this in elementary school or high school. There's a generational aspect that we also have to like lean into and break for all of us, right? That I felt like that was something deep down that I needed to address that. And God like knew that about me. So when like I went full force with him, I felt like it was something that he wanted to solve so he can know, so I can know that he's the source and everything else is a resource. Like I could read these help books, self books. I could read this over here, but ultimately he wanted for me to know that he's my father, number one, and that he takes care of his children. And that was something that he wanted to take care of because I'm his son.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Yeah, I love that. You mentioned there that you didn't want to, like it was okay, you kind of had that feeling like it's okay to have kids, you're not going to repeat the cycle. Obviously, in this particular case, you hear that a lot in like abusive relationships, like if their dad abused them or if there was a lot of alcoholism, like I'm breaking the cycle. You know, there's that image of like the abused kid turning into a father and abusing their kid, turning into a father, and just like this terrible cycle that goes around and around. Obviously, in your particular scenario, it wasn't a cycle of abuse, it was just a cycle of loss. Right? And you didn't want that to happen. So was there fear that you had in your brain that you were going to, for some reason, maybe die early because you had kids, or like you were just going to end up being an absentee father? What was that cycle you felt?
Definitely that was something that came to mind. I mean, think about it. You know, your dad dies at 29. Like when I did my TEDx talk, that was when I was turning 30. So it was a very, very emotional time for me. And it's crazy. It was in the month. My birthday's in December, and it was in December. But for sure, it's like it's one of those things where it's like I needed that piece to go forward, and like for me, it wasn't so much like doubt of like if I was going to die young or something like that, but it was more like I needed to get confirmation from God about it. So when I got into my car accident, like when I came out of the car, it was like I felt that God was like, the generational curse has been broken in regards to that angle. Like it was like I felt that confirmation, like no, like God, like God's with me. I got to go full force, and I got to just focus on being the best dad I can be, best husband, and fulfilling the assignment that God set me on the earth to do.
Awesome. I love that. And then I would imagine that that's part of the reason that you are so passionate about being a dad, and you have 5 kids, and you're trying to be as involved as you can. And like, what an opportunity that you don't want to waste.
It's the most important thing in my life is my wife, my children, my family. That's the most important thing. And I feel like, and I'd be curious to see what you think about this, Adam. And this has just been my experience with also just really looking at other dads as well. Typically, the area that we are called to like stand in is the area that we're going to be tested, especially as like men of faith, like Abraham, like for example, Moses, like Jacob. I could go on, Peter, right? Like typically with men, there's always a season where there's a runaway season where we typically run away from something, or we don't face the thing that we're supposed to face. And then like I always tell people, anything that you run away from outside of God's timing, God will always bring you back to. God will drive you to face that thing. So like when you look at Moses' life, Moses ran away from the people of Egypt. He ran away from the people of Israel not because he killed a man by accident because he was defending one of his Hebrew brothers, but it was because of the saying that said, like when you read in the book of Acts, it says that a lot of people have this point confused. They think that Moses ran away because he killed the man, but that's not why he ran away. He ran away because in the book of Acts, it says that he ran away because of the saying that's his own people said to him, "Who made you a righteous judge and deliverer over us?" And he ran away from that saying. But what's interesting is, in the mountain, when God calls him, he calls him to face the thing that he ran away from, right? And Moses had to go right back, and he had to face the people of Israel, and he had to face Pharaoh with Aaron because God did call him to be a deliverer, right? When you look at Jacob, right? Jacob ran away from Esau because he was afraid that Esau, his brother, was going to kill him because he was, right? But God said that, no, I'm going to bring you back to face Esau. And that's exactly what happened. Abraham's life, for example. Abraham, there was a time when you read in the book of Genesis that Abraham wanted to present himself before this king. And he was afraid of his wife, because his wife Sarah was beautiful, the Bible says. And he thought that if he came into this town or the city, the king was going to take Sarah to be his wife and kill Abraham. So he lied and said, hey, tell them that you're my sister, number one, and I'm going to tell them that you're my sister. So they went in there and they lied. And what happened? The guy had a dream. God showed up in a dream and said, dude, if you touch this woman, you're a dead man. That's what he pretty much told him. Like God was direct. And the man said, God, you know in my integrity, I didn't know that this. And God said, I know that you did this out of the integrity of your heart. That's why I'm coming to warn you in the dream. So he says, now therefore return this woman to her husband. And it says that the man woke up. He called his family. He told them what he saw. And then he called Sarah and he said, why didn't you tell me that he's your husband, right? And it says that the king, he called Abraham. And here's the crazy thing. God tells the king to have Abraham pray for him. And then Abraham's prays for him and his family. And the Bible says that the womb of that king's wife was opened. But Abraham was still waiting for his wife's, Sarah's womb to be open. Right? Peter, when he ran away from Jesus, God brought him right back to face Jesus. Like, I could go on and on. Typically, the thing that you run away from or the thing that you're afraid of, God will force you. If you're a man of God, he will lead you to face that thing. Because why? Because God wants us to know that true sons, we don't run away, we stand in what we need to stand. We don't run away from our consequences. If we made a mistake, we stand. Moses, we stand. If we did something wrong in the past, we're not ashamed of it. We acknowledge it. We repent, and we stand in our value, not by ourselves, but we stand with our Father. I could go on and on, but I could literally share 5 other people that went through the same situation, similar situation biblically. But like Joseph was another one as well. Joseph was one of my favorite people in the Bible. Joshua was another one, Joshua and Caleb. Another one would be Gideon, and another one would be Mark as well, Mark. And Thomas, too. I love talking about the Bible, but in characters in the Bible, or historical characters.
I'll never complain about the Bible being talked about. So I think the biggest in your face one is Jonah, right? Where he's like, nope, going the other way. And then literally gets spit up by a whale. Right? No, here you are. You're right where I needed you to be. You're going to face it, like it or not. But absolutely love it. Israel, it's been phenomenal having a chat with you. Is there anything that you definitely wanted to hit on that we haven't, as we're getting kind of close to wrapping up? Is there anything that you were like, hey, I really want to talk about this, and we haven't really discussed it yet?
More about family principles and essence, and that's really the main thing. But for any business owner that wants to learn how to grow online, I have this gift that we typically charge for. It's called the Online Business Blueprint, and it really walks through our framework and a lot of other biblical principles. By the way, the 75 plus laws that I teach on helping businesses grow, they're all biblically aligned, which is a cool thing for anybody that's also faith-based. But even if you're not faith-based, it's going to work for you, because laws, they don't care what belief you have. They just work. Like the law of gravity, it doesn't care what background you have. It's going to work for you every single time. So this gift, the Online Business Blueprint, includes several laws. And for anybody that wants it, we can gift it to them as a gift.
That sounds awesome. I really appreciate that. How do they go about getting that?
Probably the easiest way would be to go to my website, israelduran.com, and they would click on my Instagram account, and they'd send me a message. And this is the key word that they have to send me. One word, blueprint. As long as you send me the word blueprint, it will bypass the payment gateway, and my team will just ask you a few questions like your name, right, your email, and it will send it to you. And that's the first gift. And then additionally as well, if you're going through the PDF and if you get stuck or if you have a question of how to apply a law, specifically to what your circumstance is, there will be another opportunity as well for you to book a call with a member of my team or myself to be able to answer those questions more specifically, because you're going to have questions going through the guide if you go through it. So that's why we also give you that opportunity to have your questions answered directly as well.
Absolutely love it. Israel, it's been phenomenal being able to chat with you, kind of learn a little bit more about it. I love talking to fellow Christians who are business owners and trying to help other people drive towards success in their family and their business and their life. So I really appreciate all the talks that we were able to have throughout this. We covered a lot of different bases, all sorts of places. So obviously, folks, if you're liking what you hear, you want to reach out to Israel, israelduran.com. Go to his Instagram again. Type in blueprint into a message to Israel. So Israel, thank you so very much for jumping on. Thank you for the great conversation. Everybody listening, tell us in your comments, what was your favorite part? What was your least favorite part? What was your biggest takeaway from today? Please let us know. Looking forward to having some interaction with some folks. Israel, thank you again. Everybody listen, please like, subscribe, comment, all of that stuff, and we will see everybody on the next show.
Thank you so much for listening to the BizDad Podcast. We hope you found some value in your time here with us, and we look forward to bringing you the next episode. If you've enjoyed today's show, please subscribe and share so you and your friends won't miss our upcoming episodes. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Rumble, where we continue these discussions and share more valuable content. Be the dad you know you need to be and run your business in a way you're proud to share with your kids. Keep crushing it.